Get ready for the old school hustle at Ridgela Theater in Fort Worth, Texas. Join IHWE on November 5th, 2017 for great wrestling and a great cause benefiting the Hurricane Harvey relief. Doors open at 5 p.m. Bell time is at 6 p.m. For more information, follow them on Twitter at IHWE Wrestling. That's at IHWE Wrestling. This podcast is scheduled for one fall. Introducing first. No, I'm not reading the rest of this. I quit. Hey, you guys, on the podcast, just click your buttons and come on, start the show.
Today's show is brought to you by AdvancedAutoParts.com. You can save 20% off your first order at www.advancedautooffer.com/gimmick. And all you got to do is enter promo code AAP20CAST for 20% savings. And welcome back to the Gimmick Table. This is our 12th installment of the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. I am your host, Matt, and across from me is my lovely, lovely co-host. He is the oil-drenched duck to my Dawn dish soap. How you doing today, Bats?
I guess I'm feeling pretty dirty.
No, I got you clean with my dish soap. All the oil's gone.
This sounds weird.
A little dark for you?
It got dark and then weird.
Dark and weird because I scrubbed you up with my dish soap.
Stop saying that.
All right, guys, we've been talking about it these past few weeks. And folks, if you're not catching on yet, you need to prepare yourself for the Making Towns Classic coming to Nashville, Tennessee on May 12th, 2018. You're going to get 16 of the top women in professional wrestling in one night. You're going to have one winner wearing one crown. It's going to be great, and you need to stay up to date for all the upcoming announcements, including who is going to be in this wonderful tournament. And how you stay up to date is by following them on Twitter at the MT Classic. So don't forget to check it out. And we want to give a shout out to Excite Wrestling for letting us assist them in their Twitch stream. Myself and Cade getting his first real experience with wrestling, handling sound, did a wonderful job. More importantly, we are so thankful for the opportunity. If you didn't get a chance to check out the Excite Wrestling Show live, or you haven't seen the replay that's on Twitch now, you need to check it out. And you can watch it at twitch.tv/X, that's the letter, Site Wrestling. Featured guys like Joey Ryan, Jeff Cobb, and X-Site Wrestling heavyweight champion Sean Carr. So you need to get on Twitch and you need to watch it.
Or just download the Twitch app on your phone and search Excite Wrestling. It shows up right under there.
Speaking of that stream, you can actually see our guest today. So please join us in welcoming to the Gimmick Table and set course with us as we are joined today by the captain, Nick Ando. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing awesome.
So glad that you could join us. Thank you again to Austin. I know you're listening, for hooking us up with this awesome interview. And
what up, Austin?
And like I said earlier, got a chance to watch you last Friday at Excite Wrestling. And everybody listening, it was live on Twitch and the replay is available.
Yeah, check it out.
And I just want to say that you had a great match. You were really fun to watch, and you can tell when you're out there you have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's always a blast, and as I keep going on further and further, it just becomes more and more, I don't want to say casual, but fun is definitely the word to describe it. Like, I get to relax a little bit and really be myself, so that's always great.
That's awesome to hear. So let's really go back before you were wrestling. How were you first introduced to professional wrestling?
Let's see here. I would have to say it goes way back. I guess I could figure out what year it was. But WrestleMania 14 was like my first big pay-per-view that I saw, and I didn't even get to see it live really because I started watching wrestling with my older brother. He's 4 years older than I am, and he got really into it. So naturally, just always hanging around, I got really into it as well. But yeah, it was right around that time. I remember we weren't allowed to go over to our friend's house to watch the pay-per-view because it was a school night. So we had to settle for his friend taping it for us and then giving us the VHS tape the next day. Way back when VHS tapes were still a thing.
The original DVR.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't just watch it on the network like back then like you can now.
Yeah, no, I forget who I was talking to just recently about, like, I don't know what it was about wrestling fans back in the day, but it was like a weird thing where you had to totally collect a library of every Monday Night Raw sequential, like you have each episode recorded and have it all set up. I think maybe it was Cloudy I was talking about it with, but that was always how I did it. I had 900 blank VHS tape in my bedroom, and I sat there and recorded Raw and stopped it to keep the commercials out because I didn't want any of that nonsense later. But yeah, every episode I had.
Videotapes are actually how I got introduced to ECW, because the guy who lived next door to me is a good 10 years older to me, and I would talk about wrestling with him, and he's like, here. And I'm like 14. He's like, go watch this. I'm like, okay. And then I was hooked.
Yes, sir. I feel like that's how everybody has a pretty similar story, that it's almost gets slipped in front of them, and then you're hooked.
Yes, one time my uncles watched it, and that's how I got into it.
It's always some random family member, a random friend, and for me it was my older brother.
And who were some of those guys that you liked watching when you were first introduced to it?
I had longest time, like at first I liked the most random of people. Like obviously there was the Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Everybody loved them, but I was like X-Pac was like my favorite wrestler for the longest time. And even now thinking back, like it wasn't anything that, like, his matches didn't blow me away. It was just like, no, X-Pac's my dude. Guys like him, British Bulldog, Billy Gunn, the guys that were around for a while and have now, looking back, a great body of work, but for some reason they just stuck out for me back then.
I think that's awesome, though, that it's not just the typical guys that you normally hear, and it's, that just shows that, there's something out there for everybody. As a wrestling fan, there's something for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, and I'll throw that out there for even any young wrestlers listening. Like, those random dudes, there's just something about them, they stick out. So don't be afraid to do something small and try to stick out, because it goes a lot further than you expect.
Who would you say now do you still enjoy watching from a fan perspective?
Everybody now, really. Like, I'm. It sounds stupid, but I'm just as big of a fan now as I was back then. Like, I don't get to watch Raw all the time or put it on my TV. I usually have it set up airing on my phone while something else is on my TV. But like, I just love seeing now. I look at guys' work rate. I'm really big on performing at this point, really, for the fans and setting things up to take fans on a ride. So I'll sit there and watch Monday Night Raw, and I really love watching Miz right now. The Miz doesn't get nearly enough credit, and he's doing great stuff right now. But he's really good at doing stuff that some people might scoff at or think it's corny, but he's really got the crowd in his hand the whole time, and that's really good. So still looking at the random guys that you wouldn't expect, guys like Miz. I love John Cena. John Cena doesn't get enough credit for how good he is, but I like watching New Japan stuff too, so Omega, Ishii, Naito, these guys are all great. I watch everything I can.
We need some type of like sound effect or alarm every time someone mentions Omega and Matt goes crazy.
Yeah, like that, and that sounds like cliche, or you could be a fanboy to say it, but like when guys are doing awesome stuff, there's nothing wrong with saying they're doing awesome stuff. They deserve it.
Oh, he's my favorite, hands down. I'm always like, whenever I talk to somebody, it's just like whenever I just get a huge smile on my face, because I have a lot of friends who only watch the WWE, so when I talk about it, they're just like, who cares? So when somebody says it, it's nice to be able to.
Yeah, but it's like the end of the world to you, right? It's like, no, it does matter because it's so great.
It is. It's something. It's refreshing is the best word I can use to describe.
Yeah, I agree.
So when did you decide that you didn't want to just be a fan, you actually wanted to become a wrestler?
I would have to say when I first discovered independent wrestling, which didn't happen for a while. I was like maybe 14 or something. And in Rochester, New York, we had a local company that was running for a while, but it wasn't until I was in high school and met a kid there who happened to be cousins with, at the time, Brody Lee, now Luke Harper. And he was always hustling for the independent promotion there, NWA Upstate at the time. So he's like, hey, you guys like wrestling? My cousin's a wrestler. You should go check him out. So he sold a couple of tickets to Dick Justice and I, and we ended up going down, and we were hooked from then on. And then I'm trying to think, there was a bunch of random guys that were there right around the time when when we first started going. Teddy Hart, we saw Bobby Roode and Colt Cabana and Abyss and all these other guys way before like they were doing all the cool stuff that they're doing now. But I saw them. I'm like, I could probably get into this. And then we found out that they had a school and that you had to be 16 to apply at the school. Dick Justice, his birthday's 2 months away from mine, so he's a little bit younger than me. We had to wait till his birthday, but on our 16th birthday, we went up and we signed up for the school, and we've been there ever since.
And who are some of the key people, especially early on in your career, that helped you get everything going to where you are now?
There was always a lot of guys circulating through that school that were always helping out. When we started, the head trainer was Jimmy Olsen, and he really laid the groundwork for everything that we've been able to do. He just real firm instruction on the basics of wrestling and how important they were. So he ground that into our brains. And then we had guys, like I said, Brody Lee was there, so he was coming up to the school. Colin Delaney, who at this point, he's my big brother. Like, we're super close, so he was very important and get me all the information that I needed. Then at the time, there's guys. Gabe Saint was there. Cheech was there. Cloudy. All these different people were coming through.
And how long did you go between starting your training to your first match?
Man, it's weird being involved in a school now. It feels like guys are in and out of the school and start wrestling so quick. But it was honestly, I want to say it was almost a year before I was actually able to have a match. Well, I had to, you know what? It was even longer because we started when we were 16, and it was a thing where you have to be 18 legally to wrestle. So Dick Justice and I would do battle royals wearing lucha masks, so nobody knew how young we were. So we were doing that as soon as we were pretty much taught how to get thrown out of the ring. But it was definitely more than a year before I had my first actual match.
You know, with everybody else we have spoken with, that kind of, does seem a lot longer than most people. Do you think that was beneficial to you, though?
Yeah, definitely. It goes hand in hand with how I've kind of always, I don't want to say treated wrestling, but like the perspective that I've looked at training at wrestling is that I've always wanted, I don't want to say I always want to be prepared, but I always want to put out my best. I don't want to half-ass anything and kind of do things with less than 100%. So in all honesty, waiting in all aspects of life, really, the more you wait and more prepared you could be, it's always beneficial. So I think I was just more prepared because I had to wait so long.
And when you had that first match, kind of go through that experience for us.
Well, it was quite the experience because it involved somebody who, I don't want to quite say he's a legend here in Rochester, but he was a formidable figure known as the Dusty Taker. He's a referee that we had who happened to have long hair and decided that he wanted to enter battle royals, or maybe it was like a Halloween battle royal, and he went as the Undertaker, and then that turned into the Dusty Taker, which led to him having some crazy undefeated streak, which in my very first match I was the first person to actually pin him. It was super corny and it was super difficult to work with because as I said, he was a referee, not really a wrestler, and although I guess at that point he had more matches than me, so he was more of a wrestler than I was, but he wasn't really trained, so it was not exactly the most coordinated matches in the world.
And what would you say, even though, it wasn't one of the most coordinated matches, what were some of the takeaways from that experience?
That's really where I started. I have a way when I do things, I try to take as much responsibility out of the other guy's hands and put it in my hands. I don't want to say I don't trust people to get things right, but it was definitely a lesson that I learned then, is that if I put too much trust in somebody, they're definitely leaving me too much room to be let down. So I was a little bit let down, so I made it a bit of a rule for myself to not put so much trust in the other guy.
Kind of elaborate for us, who is the captain?
Oh, man. To be honest, and people may, I don't want to say they'll be upset, but the captain probably isn't nearly what everybody thinks he is. It really, the whole thing started when Dick Justice and I were a tag team known as the Young and the Wrestlers, and we split up and he became Dick Justice, did the Super Cop thing, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was watching the show Eastbound and Down at the time. I think it was just when the first season came came out. But there's this character in there, the bartender. His name's Clegg, and something about it just I was in tears laughing every time he was doing something. But there's a scene in there where he's a chauffeur and decides to wear like cargo shorts and a sports coat and a captain's hat, and it doesn't make any sense at all. But he was so just like, nope, this is what I should be wearing. It was hilarious to me, so I was like, oh, I want to do something like that. And that's really where the whole captain thing started. And from there, it became more and more just me and my personality and me getting to let loose. So a lot of people think that it's nautical related, and I'll play it up because it's always fun, but it really couldn't have less to do with the open seas or anything like that.
I think that makes it even better.
Yeah, that people are always shocked when they ask me about it and like, oh, did you have a boat or something? And I'm just like, no, I was watching a TV show and something really stuck with me.
What an awesome TV show at that.
I think so.
I love that show. Anything that he does.
You watch his new show at all?
I'm going to say, no, I haven't seen, what is it, Vice Principals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got HBO Go, and they have ads for it up, and I'm like, oh, I got to start watching that, but I haven't had a chance to yet.
Yeah, I don't know if the second season has started yet, or it's definitely starting soon, but yeah, the first season, it's definitely a great show. It's a different role for him, but he's
yeah, I was gonna say, does it hold up to like Eastbound and Down, or is it way different?
Not as like over the top, but in a different way. Yeah, you know what? It does. In some places, it just goes kind of way over the top.
I was gonna say it has. I feel like that's kind of just like Danny McBride's thing. Like he's got his own random quirkiness that he's allowed to throw in, and people just I don't say they can't question it, but they just don't.
Oh, he's definitely Danny McBride in this movie. He is himself, but
I'm pretty sure
it's great.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely have to watch it then.
He's Danny McBride in everything he does.
Everything he does.
Right.
Like Your Highness, that movie still gives me nightmares.
Oh, this is the end? That is probably exactly what would happen if he was alive in the apocalypse.
And that's the thing is like random stupid humor. That was more inspiration for the captain character than anything, because that's why I started coming out with the cigarette that's already broken, and eventually it led to me coming out with a fur coat for no reason.
Gets chilly on them open seas.
Right. Especially when you're wearing a female one-piece bathing suit. It gets a tad bit nipply out there, so
gotta stay warm.
No, the fur coat definitely came in handy, I suppose. Although, I did use it as a blanket a couple times, sleeping the ground and in a car. It did definitely come in actual handy.
Yeah, you got ring attire and a blanket, multi-purposing. Great thing. Now, how do you get the fans invested into your matches?
That's the hardest question, right? If everybody had the answer to it, we'd all be making Roman Reigns money right now. But no, I really do my best to look at things. Like I said, everything I do it performing for a crowd. The crowd is what I work for. So if I'm new to a place, it's a different strategy every time. It depends on what the crowd's like. Depends on if I've been there before, if I'm in the middle of a feud with somebody or something. But usually it takes time. I'm pretty good at connecting with crowds. A lot of people would be shocked to hear that all you got to do is talk to a crowd and they'll respond because they want to be talked to. They're there to have a good time. It's like going to a concert or something, and the lead singer calls you out from the stage, or you're at a stand-up show and you get a little sidebar with the comedian. It's fun for everybody. So that's the kind of stuff that you got to do, and in the long run, it definitely pays off.
No, I have to agree. I mean, I think what we've learned from doing these interviews and speaking to a lot of guys is that really the one thing that they're going out for is to not only create moments for themselves, but create those experiences with the fans as something that they can enjoy together.
Yeah, no, it's something that, honestly, I don't know how much of like an inside perspective or what it shows on the outside, but like being around people going through different stages in wrestling, like you see people go through phases. It's like certain levels of maturity that you see people go through where, whether, like for me, I went through like a serious wrestling phase where I only wanted to do chain wrestling and be Dynamite Kid and Chris Benoit, and then like I got really good at that, but I realized I don't want to say getting over. It's just like it wasn't leading to what I was looking for. So then you bounce around and you do a bunch of different things, but it all comes back to, like, to me, like I ask myself, it's like, oh, what made me like wrestling? It's like you have to put yourself in that perspective. And for wrestling, whether people realize or not, the crowd is everything. You know, you can't imagine like watching a wrestling match or like you saw the empty arena match or whatever like that. It takes away from the atmosphere. So you got to have the people there. You got to have them involved. So if you're not performing for them, then what are you doing?
Right. If there's nobody there to see the show,
Right. Like I said, everybody goes through phases. I think it's a longer phase for guys to realize that they can't exactly just keep wrestling for themselves. They got to find a way to skew what they want to make it endearing for a crowd. So there's some compromise there.
Right. You got to find an even medium of what you want out of it and what the fans want out of it.
Right, because everybody has different tastes. That's just like going back to us talking about like New Japan and Kenny Omega. It's like different tastes. It's not going to be for everybody. So what do? You got to find a way to make it for everybody.
You know, wrestling as a whole, regardless of what you like, there truly is at this day and age, 2017, something for everyone. And I think more people got to, see that, you may not like it, but somebody does, and there's something you like that somebody isn't going to like.
Right, yeah, that's just the way it goes.
How do you prepare yourself for the match from an in-ring perspective?
Well, usually, depending on where it is and who I'm wrestling with, it goes back to pretty much a match-by-match thing, but it all goes back to that number one thing is, like, what's the crowd going to be like? What are they going to want to see? How can I give them what they want, or some form of what they want? So a lot of times I get in my own head coming up with different ideas to try to move a crowd a certain way or get them to get to a certain level of excitement or bring them down. I think of ways to do that and think of how I might have to do that. So I get really in my head that way, but I try not to get too much planned ahead of time before I get a real feel for the atmosphere and what it's going to be like there.
Yeah, I mean, like any live performer is going to say, like, the crowd has their own energy, and you kind of got to model what you're doing right there, kind of feed off the energy the crowd's giving you.
Right. And that just goes back, we were talking about this last Excite show, and I happen to be on first, so that there's a certain scenario where I don't exactly get to wait until the show starts and see what a crowd's going to be like, but I was also fortunate enough to be able to grab the microphone and kind of a bit of a promo. So in doing that, I was able to completely control how the crowd was, so I got them right to where I wanted them to be verbally before the match started.
Yeah, they were loving you.
Yeah, that's something that it wasn't always comfortable for me, but now I'm just so relaxed when I'm out there that I'm able to make a connection pretty quick with people. So especially, like I said, when you get to talk to them, that's all they want. So if you talk right to them, there's no way they're not going to get excited.
Exactly. And how do you go from match to match and constantly progressing and innovating your work?
It's a lot of slow and steady work, if anything. For me, I just recently started adding a couple new moves into the stuff into my repertoire. But like me, I'm more about what kind of different stories I could tell. So it's gonna sound like a broken record, but keep going back to like that crowd reaction. Like I like watching things now. Some people might see as like a cool spot that's really quick and then ends with a cool move. Like I'll look at it and I'll see like, oh, they brought the crowd from a 3 all the way up to a 6, and I'll be like, oh, that's something cool I want to try. So I look at things from a pretty weird perspective these days, but that's what I'm looking for as far as preparation. Ways to control the crowd and different types of stories that I could tell them.
So it almost seems like you're more of a fan, so to you it's more important to give the fans something exciting.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't want to sound stupid and say it's like a maturity thing, but when it comes down to it, wrestling, it's a business. All these promotions are a business, so they have to sell tickets. They gotta. Everybody's trying to sell merchandise. If you have any respect for the people that you're trying to sell to, which if you look at anybody right now who's successful, whether it's anybody, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, all those guys in Ring of Honor, the top independent guys. guys, they sell a ton of merchandise, but they also have like a very, very deep respect for the fans. That's something that translates. So that's just more what I look at. Like, I don't want to have somebody come out and spend that week's extra money to go to a wrestling show and then have a bad time because I was more concerned with something that I wanted to do and not concerned about what they were doing or what they wanted, you know? That doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah, and I think that kind of shows what separates, like, from the amateur and pro level of, like, independent wrestling is where you evolve doing it for the crowd and not doing it for just yourself anymore.
Right, and yeah, it may sound weird, but that's why I kind of say it's a bit of a maturity thing. Like, you need to have your time and really understand the way things work and for things to come kind of full circle there. So it could just be a time around the business thing or what it is, but that's really what it all comes back to.
I think that's an awesome, mentality to have, and I think as a fan, I just have to say thank you that you actually do care about what we think and what it means to us.
Hey, the way I look at it, it is literally my job. It's my job to care. So you're welcome, but what I'm there for.
Awesome. And when did you realize that as a wrestler, you were doing this well and you were doing it successfully? When did that moment click for you?
It kind of hit me a little bit too late, to be honest with you, because there was a couple years ago when I was in 2CW and I was really hitting my stride there. I had that real long reign as the heavyweight champion there, and I was doing a lot of great things. I think it was just all going so fast at the time that I wasn't able to keep up in my mind. And then towards the tail end of that, I got hurt and had to have shoulder surgery. So that kind of like cut everything to an abrupt stop. And it wasn't until after that I realized like how cool everything was going on around me. So it was when I kind of had it taken away from me that I realized like things were really picking up. So it was at that point that I kind of had to spin my wheels and figure out how to use some sort of momentum from what I was doing to get things back going when I came back from that.
And how did you do that when you came back?
Honestly, it was a lot harder than I expected because, like I said, 2CW was a huge platform for me, not just as far as like being a great promotion, but they ran all the time. They ran sometimes like twice a month or every month, so I always had consistent work. And after I got hurt, they went out of business or they had closed down. So that was a huge chunk of my work was not there when I came back. So I did my best to bounce around and pick things up, but it was really more Rochester doing upstate pro wrestling here and Excite in Binghamton, bouncing back and forth from those places trying to kick some stuff up.
And do you feel that you've gotten back to that point?
Now I'm finally feel like I have momentum on my side. I don't want to ever say that I'm coasting because every day of my life I'm sitting here trying to think of a way to get better. So I'm never coasting, but now I feel like the wind is pushing me a little bit. So yeah, a little bit. It's a little more comfortable now, but I don't really want to ever stay comfortable.
That's a good attitude to have. And how have you dealt with the success that you've achieved throughout your career?
Well, I'd like to think I've been pretty responsible with it, but it all comes around to that mentality that we talked about earlier about having a deep respect for the fans and the people that really make it possible for everything to keep going. And now at this point, I feel it's partially my responsibility to make it known to all the other people coming up that this is the way things should be working. Because I think that's something that's a little bit lost, I don't want to say with this generation, but in recent years, you see less and less guys being able to stick around and being around long enough to really set these I don't want to say like age-old standards, but these things that have been cemented in wrestling, these traditions, they're not exactly being held up, and people don't think of it as being damaging, but that's what leads to guys not really caring about fans and looking at them as dollar signs and trying to get over on them to try to steal money out of their pocket as opposed to earn it and actually make them want to give you money. So that's what I work with now, is trying to pass that down, and I teach kids at the Kayfabe Dojo here in Rochester, so I help guys get ready to pretty much get out on the road and hopefully set a good example.
Do you think there's a particular reason why you're seeing a loss in those, age-old standards?
I think it's something that it just happens over time. If you read books or look back at old wrestling stories, you hear from the beginning of time there's always the young guy in the locker room who's getting told something that he doesn't like by the older guy in the locker room, so he doesn't like it, and then by the time he gets to be on top, he goes, no, this isn't going to be something I do, so it's now scratched from the record, and now there's a new young guy that doesn't like something that he's doing, and then so on and so forth. And just wrestling, especially lately, because it's gone through this big boom, there's so much wrestling around that it's really easy for guys to just kind of show up and be involved. So you see guys coming in at an influx, and these guys just aren't around. There's not enough veterans around to show them the way. It's a generational thing where I think stuff is just slowly lost, and then I think recently there's just been so many new faces that it's impossible to teach them all.
So what do you do for your students? How do you get them into the right mentality and understand those things?
The guys that I work with now, that almost strictly what I work with is helping them. That we do like match structure type things and psychology type things, but that's the one thing that I always drill home is that how is what you're doing in the ring reflect from a fan's perspective. It's always about trying to give the fan everything that they paid for, essentially. So I think when you really press the matter in the ring, and that's the stuff that the kids care about right now is what they're doing in the ring. So if I make it important there, I'm hoping that it just translates and it carries over to when they step out of the ring and they just have that genuine, deep respect for the fan.
It's good to hear that there are people there that are, obviously if you have so many people trying to get into wrestling and there's not enough, legitimate, trainers out there or veterans, like you said, then you're going to find a lot of people that are kind of left to their own devices and may get in with the wrong people who may not have the right attitude in the first place.
Yeah, and then it's just a combination. There's a lot of new guys, and then there's not as many veterans that have been around. You see, I'm an example of like guys that they're like young veterans that haven't been around. 20 years ago they would never be considered a veteran. Now they just have more seniority over everybody, so we're kind of just left in charge. So it's a matter of guys also learning on the job,
Yeah, I mean, do you find that you learn a lot more as you teach other people?
Yeah, absolutely. Things that you think of to explain to them, you don't always think to be critical and point the finger at yourself and see how it may apply. So those two things definitely go hand in hand. You definitely learn when you teach.
Right, you're giving somebody advice, and then you remember something you did that's opposite of said advice, and you're like, okay, now I got to change this myself as well, and I can grow too.
Right, yeah, you kind of call your own bullshit when you go at it.
Yeah, and then you get like a student who's like really up and coming, and you're like, oh man, now I gotta step my game up, or I'm gonna look like a bad teacher here.
Right, yeah, no, and to be honest, that makes me so happy, that feeling, because if they're doing something that's making me question myself, that means I'm doing something wrong and I should be pushing myself. So I'm happy for them, and if I'm doing the right things, it should only make me better. So that I'm a big believer in the whole rising tide raises all boats.
There we go. Some nautical
got
references.
a nautical reference in there, so.
That's not good. Is that how that saying goes? I don't really know sayings, but I think that's what. I
mean, it's logically correct. So
I'm like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys, so.
I hear things, and as I was saying it, I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And it applies, so it must be a saying.
Right. Or we can coin it.
Yeah, it is now. Turn to the camera, wink.
Trademark.
Yeah, you could say that like really ominously, and it's like so innocuous, but you could make it ominous. The rising tide raises all boats.
Maybe I should say ships. It sounds more fancy.
Ships. Ooh.
More sophisticated.
More captainly.
Yeah.
I don't think captain
boats.
is a word.
Children play with boats. Oh, I'm a captain. What was I thinking?
Boats are toys.
Boats are for babies.
Now, how have you dealt with some of the tougher moments of your career, and what have you learned from those moments?
Well, tough ones, it's hit or miss about how well I'm going to handle it because I have a bit of a short temper. So there's things that go wrong, and if it catches me right at the wrong second, it's like potential to blow up. But in my old age, I'm trying to kick that. So trying to step back and analyze things a little bit more nowadays. Things like something as stupid as just guys missing spots or guys blowing spots. Back in the day, it would have been easy for me to like get pissed off and not stomp them out, but like get in their face a little bit and then try to get back to it or try to do it right. And sometimes that doesn't help the situation. It just makes it worse because now everybody's on edge, so it looks like crap. But nowadays I'm pretty good about keeping my cool. And like I said, things go wrong in the ring. You just take a second, breathe. Everybody's going to get on the right page, and you go about your business.
Right. It seems like, I mean, most times, you guys probably notice the mistakes far more than, most fans are ever going to notice a mistake.
Yeah, and then what people don't realize is usually when you sit there and dwell on the mistakes or you think it's in your head, it only draws more attention to what you did wrong. So it helps nobody there.
Right, and it can lead, like you said, things get tense, and it can lead to more mistakes and even bigger mistakes.
Right, yeah, and when things start piling up, and it happens sometimes, but they pile up and it gets overwhelming in somebody's head, that's the last place you want to be because you don't want a guy thinking about something else when they're picking you up and swinging you around and everything like that. So that's something that I really thought to take into account with chilling out on my temper and stuff like that in the ring is just because there's somebody else involved, and I would feel like a real terrible person if I ever hurt somebody because I wasn't paying attention because I was pissed. That's stupid. So you always got to check yourself. If not for yourself, do it for the other guy.
Right, and I mean it's a live show. Things are going to happen. It happens with anything that's live, any type of live event. Things go wrong, things happen. You just got to roll with the punches and keep it going like it didn't happen. That's the only way to make it work.
Yeah, and another thing that a new thought to me or a new ideology that I go by is that people will always forget. There's always going to be another match. Like, it's going to seem like a lot now and it's going to bother you tonight, but if this is really what you want to do, there should hopefully be hundreds of more matches in your future, so you won't even remember it. So why sweat it now?
Right, you always know you can do something better, so do it.
Right, like and most guys, if they're doing it often enough, something goes wrong one night, the next night it's usually still sticking in their head, and they're like, all right, I'm not going to let that happen again. And it just pushes them forward a little bit.
And that's what makes you a pro.
I like to think so.
It would have been some of the most meaningful matches in your career.
There's been a few. Definitely one of the most crazier ones that I hold dear is the ladder match that I had with Sean Carr in Binghamton. It turned out to be so much more than I was ever expecting it to be. So that's why it really stands out, and it's really special for me, is because that's one where I feel like I definitely overachieved. So like that one was real fun because it got crazy, and then there's other matches. One of my first 2CW title defenses was against Colin, and as far as I know, we may have only wrestled each other 2 or 3 times one-on-one, but that was like a big moment for me because at that point it was the biggest thing I had ever done, and I love Colin like a brother. He's my big brother, so that one I definitely hold close as well. I've had a lot of fun ones lately. Since I came back from my shoulder injury, I had some fun ones with Cloudy, he's one of my best friends. Both him and Colin were in my wedding. So, like, we're really good friends. So it's weird how you could go from being really good friends to doing an extra good job of kicking the crap out of each other in the ring. But it usually means good things for the fans. So those are the ones I really enjoy.
Especially if you're friends, because, it kind of has to put the egos aside and just out there, you're having fun together. Fans can tell you're having fun, and I think it resonates with them.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they know that you're friends. It definitely creates fun vibe for the crowd, but it also, importantly, I think you just end up being more comfortable out there when you're out there with your friend, because, you know, it could be the ring or it could be your living room. You know, you just, at that point, you're just hanging out. So the more relaxed you are, the more comfortable you are, it allows you to really play your role a little bit better in the long run, you know?
Right, the more fun you're having, the more fun the crowd's going to have.
Right, it just, everything becomes natural.
It's the one time the trickle-down system works.
Yeah, nobody's complaining.
What are some of your dream matches that you could have?
Well, at this point, I wasn't always one of the people that had like a list of stuff and was like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have all these achievements. It wasn't really until the last couple of years that I really cracked the whip on myself and said, hey, quit being a dumbass, you're really good, you could do anything you put your mind to, and really set my mind on that. So my dream matches are the ones that I could have, may seem out there, but I'm going to set my bar high, because then I'm going to aim high. But like the top guys, like I would love to wrestle John Cena one day. That would be a dream come true, because Cena is the best of the best as far as professionals go. So that's something I would like to do. And even though it looks like he's going to be retiring soon, I won't take it off the list until he's done. But AJ Styles is incredible. I'd like to wrestle Kenny Omega. All these guys. I want to be able to make my rounds. Like I really admire guys like Cody Rhodes right now, just going and making his rounds and kind of leaving his footprint everywhere he goes. Those are the guys that I've always liked. So those are the shoes I kind of want to fill.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Rhodes is doing a lot for the sport right now.
When I first met him, when he did that Excite show, it's funny that I think everybody was taken back that it was their first experience with him, but definitely me and everybody I talked to were just like blown away with how good of a guy he is, and like just straight up true professional. Cared about the fans, showed up looking like James Bond, overachieved in the ring. Like that's what a professional does, and he's doing like his best to go around and do it everywhere, which is awesome. But like when that happened, I sent a text message to Brody Lee, and I was like, hey man, not for nothing, but was Cody Rhodes always the coolest dude in the world? And he just laughed, and he goes, he's the best, and he's on a goodwill mission for wrestling right now. So like, more power to him. That's the coolest thing for me.
Right, like he's got like a whole legacy that he's kind of pushing right now. The
Not
next
just pushing it, he built it.
Right, I mean,
literally built it. Set out to do it and did it. So how could you hate on somebody like that?
and more importantly, he loves doing it.
Right, like it checks every box off. It's all you could ask for.
Right, yeah.
And it's paying off for him. So like everyone wins.
Right, he's doing it without the WWE, and he's making money, and you can be, when you're making money, you don't have to be a nice person, but he chooses to be one.
Yeah,
it's just who he is.
It's one of those cases of nice guys don't always finish last, because he's doing quite well.
And I am a fan of the actual Ring of Honor. I think that is awesome. That is great. That made my day when I saw that. It reminds you ever watch The League?
Yeah.
When Ruxin changes the Shiva to the ring? That's all. I just started laughing because that's all I was thinking about.
I'm sure that idea started from something like that, too. It all starts from something small, like a TV show.
That's what I'm learning is, like, where'd you get this gimmick? Well, I was watching this TV show.
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers are fans of something else, so why not?
Who would think you guys have other interests?
That's all like the cool random pop culture stuff that carries over. Or like, I shouldn't even say carry over, because it's not like prominent in the character or anything. But even guys like Chris Jericho said when he turned heel back in the day and had that feud with Shawn Michaels, he saw, it was like No Country for Old Men or something like that. And he was totally inspired by this serial killer in a movie. He's like, I want a character like that. So he became super serious.
Yeah, it's small little things that most people won't notice, but they draw inspiration.
Yeah, little nuances or characteristics.
What was I watching? You ever watch Death Note?
No, I haven't.
All right. Well, while I was watching, I'm getting through the first season, and there's a scene where a guy's writing in a book, and he's just going. This is from like 2006 when it first premiered, and he's just going delete, delete, delete. So, and I was just like, is that where he got it from? And I mean, you look at it, and it's almost like
it's totally possible.
Right. Yeah, he showed me.
You can't rule it out.
Right. Somebody obviously already had a YouTube video where it's got, the scene from...
connecting all the dots?
Right, yeah.
Like a conspiracy video?
Who needs to figure anything out when we have YouTube? Somebody's already figured out why this could happen.
they figured out how it's happened, and they formed 6 pie graphs to show it visually as well.
That's too much time if you're making pie graphs on YouTube. You need to go out and find something else to do.
Make a real pie.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's going to get views.
No, I'm just going to make YouTube videos where I make pies and see if that works.
Nobody will eat
Can you
your
just
vegan
eat pie? Does it work the same way if you just eat them?
I think there's a different website for stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like fetish culture right there.
There's definitely one for sitting in pies. So I mean, I don't know why I know that, but that is a piece of knowledge I know.
Do people pay for that? I wonder if there's like specialty sites that offer that, and people are undercutting them by just going on YouTube because it's not like an obscene thing they're doing. They're just sitting on pies, no big deal.
Right? And they're like, "Oh, I'll PayPal you $20 to sit in and cherry pie this time."
Yeah, they're like, screw your website and memberships. I'm racking in pie sitting ad revenue here.
Give you $50 for a cake.
Right, and you'll get a Mazda commercial in the middle of it.
Can't get the Mazda, but we'll give you a commercial. See, we're in the wrong business. We shouldn't have gone into podcasting. We should have gone into pie sitting.
Pie sitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting.
I mean, we could probably do both. We could do some live on-air pie. Nobody wants to be part of that.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the promotions that you'd like to work for, some of the bigger ones, if ever given the opportunity?
Some of the big ones now, I look at things, and going back to being that broken record, I'm always looking at crowds and working with different crowds. So to me, I want to find somewhere where I could work in front of more people at once, bigger crowds, because I feel like it's a whole nother level to psychology and skill to be able to, it's always fun and intimate to be able to have fun with a little crowd, but big crowds are a totally different animal, but that seems exciting. So places like Ring of Honor, where they're working in front of good houses, House of Hardcore, they are always doing good. And it sounds cheesy just because these guys are the best guys on the independents right now, but really what it comes down to is like that's a skill that I'm looking to acquire, and those guys they would offer me a chance to learn that. So that's what I'm going for.
And what would be some of the advice? Obviously, you do some teaching and training yourself. What is your advice for young wrestlers and anybody out there who's listening who is a wrestler?
I would just say don't be in a rush to get anywhere too quick, you know. If you have any head on your shoulders, you know what you want to do, there's a long road ahead of you. So the best thing you could do is take every opportunity to learn everything you can along the way. So by the time you get to where you want to get, you're fully prepared, you know. A lot of guys are looking to rush and get the most out of every opportunity. Well, not the most out of every opportunity, but like jump the gun and get things that they haven't quite worked for yet. And understand that wrestling is just like everything else. When you put in hard work, the hard work pays back. So there's shortcuts that you can take, but nothing pays off like working hard. So take your time, learn your lessons, and just stick to it and hustle.
That's awesome advice, man. And when it's all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for?
That's a good question, because I don't even know that myself. I think about it a lot, kind of, because I love wrestling and I love being able to affect fans and crowds like that. But I am also I get a real sense of achievement out of helping these kids learn lessons and helping young wrestlers learn the ropes a little bit. So if anything, I want to be remembered, I guess, as somebody who cared about wrestling so much. That's what prevailed most. Like, whether it's young wrestlers doing good and carrying on good wrestling, or fans that are happy and truly enjoy coming out to the shows, as long as everybody's having a good time, that's what matters to me.
Awesome, man.
I just hope that carries over, you know. That's what's most important to me, and everything that I do kind of reflects that point of view.
Almost having that idea that, you want your impact even when you're not there anymore to still be positive and still having an influence on people, and that people are doing it the right way and for the right reason.
Yeah, and a weird little thing. There's a random lyric to a Young Jeezy song where he says, "I'm your favorite rapper's favorite rapper," and that's something that always stuck with me. I always wanted to be your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler.
I hear very, very teacher mentality about all this.
I know what I'm calling this week's episode. What events do you have coming up?
Coming up, I have UPW. I'm trying to think. I believe it's October 9th. I'll be at Excite coming up, and ESW as well.
And how can people get a hold of you on social media?
Twitter's the best way. I have an Instagram that I don't really keep up with as well as I should, but Twitter is where I'm checking every day.
Instagram is hard.
And that'll, but both of those are at Icebox Ando. But yeah, the Instagram definitely isn't getting enough love at the moment.
Yeah, we have like 26 followers. We do much better.
Yeah, we gotta get better at pictures.
Yeah,
we're better pictures.
Well, we're not attractive young females. That's half the problem.
It could be the problem, or maybe you just don't have the right filter, or maybe you don't put as much time into putting your makeup on as those hot girls. So
yeah, my makeup work needs
all things to look into.
I think you just need to post some more pictures of you in a bathing suit with a fur coat.
Oh, that's true.
That you will.
But if my foundation isn't right, if my mascara and stuff, the likes, people aren't clicking. They're not concerned with it.
You gotta hold that phone up right at the perfect angle too to get like the nice cleavage and ass right in there.
You gotta get both.
Yeah, I got a nice deep cut singlet. So if I got a good squeeze going, my bust is out of control.
Oh, crazy!
You gotta have that perfect angle, or they're just gonna swipe right.
Yeah, and that ruins everybody's day.
You do a little tanning first, make yourself look exotic.
Exotic. That's if there's any word I'd like to describe myself in pictures, I hope it's exotic. That's my new Instagram hashtag for everything.
I'll make sure when I tweet out the episode, I hashtag exotic.
There you go. Let's get it started.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have some fun. My co-host comes up with little games based on the episode. I have no idea what he's come up with. This is how we're going to do it from now on. So we call it Unhinging the Gimmick Table. So, Bats, tell us what we're going to do.
All right, so we're going to go with the obvious boating reference here and roll all the way to Gilligan's Island. So why don't we assign some wrestlers to the characters of Gilligan's Island?
Ooh. All right. You lay the characters out for me. I'll come up with wrestlers.
Yeah, that's the plan here.
All
right.
All right.
So we'll start off. We'll do like maybe even like a tag team or a couple. The Howells, Mr. and Mrs. Howell.
Now are we going like WWE wrestlers? Are we talking like my friends?
You can do whoever
anyone you want.
Anyone you want.
Anyone you
Anyone.
think fits the role.
Man, there's so many wrestlers out there.
And well, all right. So we'll narrow it down to like WWE indie wrestlers, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like Ring of Honor and everything.
Let's see here. Who do we say was first?
The Howells, the older couple, always fighting with each other. You can be ironic
Ready
too. Don't worry about the gender.
It's going to be different. I'm going to go with Cheech and Cloudy. Cheech and Cloudy, if you're around them for more than 2.5 minutes, they immediately turn into an old couple who never stop bickering back and forth.
Perfect.
All right, who you got next?
All right, so Maryann. So she's kind of like the ditzy little brunette chick.
No,
right, I'm trying to think.
She's the farm girl.
Yeah.
Is that in quotations?
No, it is.
I guess
farm girl.
She is the classic Midwest tap.
And remember, it doesn't have to be gender specific. You know?
Oh, yeah, make it ironic, too.
I'm trying to think of whether or not I want to throw Dick Justice under the bus here. And I think I'm definitely going to go with Dick Justice there.
All right.
So, who would you say would be Gilligan?
I'm going with Big Brother Colin Delaney.
All right, I'm gonna go with Dolph Ziggler myself.
Yeah, I've seen Colin wear some Gilligan hats though.
All right.
And he's definitely my Gilligan, I would say.
Your little buddy?
Yeah.
So who would be the professor?
I would have to go with Jay Freddy. Yeah, he's the old like the old owl of our group, always dropping old man wisdom.
Making TVs out of coconuts.
Yep, I've seen him open beers so many different ways.
It's a handy trick to have. I can do a couple myself. We're missing Ginger, so she's like the movie star.
Ooh,
super vain.
Dalton Castle.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it kind of speaks for itself for when you see his character, or his entrance, or everything like that. But if you've ever seen him actually get into it and spray his hair and get it to stand up like that, it's the most absurd thing in the world.
That's exactly. All right, so last is the skipper.
Oh, who do I give this to? This one's tough. I'm going to throw a curveball at everybody, and it may not be well-known wrestler, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this to all of our friend Austin. He's the best skipper I know.
All right, I can agree with that 100%. He has been awesome.
I'm just trying to think of people that I interact with that really kind of stand out at this stuff. But he's a definition of a skipper.
Holding down the fort, getting pissed at Gilligan.
Yep. I was going to say, I've seen Austin have to put his foot down and really get firm with people.
Yeah, and he makes me work. He just texts me. He's like, by the way.
Oh, yeah, he cracks the whip on you.
Yeah, he's like, I got 3 interviews for you. Are you ready? It's like, what information do you have on Nick? I'm like, I'm ready, dude. I got my questions. But it helps because, I do a lot of that stuff, like getting the interview, preparing. It's nice to have somebody there that's willing to help, just to help.
Right, yeah, and happy to do it.
We hung out on Sunday because we all thought No Mercy was on Sunday, me, him, and Mike, and we get to his house.
Yeah.
And
I think I was under that same impression that it was this Sunday, but either way.
Yeah, and we're just sitting there and we're like, okay, it should be starting. No.
Nah, instead you got Mae Young Classic, Season 1, Episode 4.
No, he made us watch Snowden, but the whole time we're watching Snowden, no. He somehow figured out how to zoom in on the Xbox, so he's just like zooming in on their faces, so the camera is like on the inside. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like getting motion sickness. I still had a fun time though.
I was gonna say, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, motion sickness doesn't sound fun, but
It's like,
If you get from a roller coaster.
zooming in on faces, that could get interesting. Was it in 4K? I hope it was 4K.
I think it was some app that streams movies that other people are watching on their computer. It's called like
You like jump in on their watch.
Gimmick.
Yeah, something weird.
Like if they pause the movie, it pauses the movie too.
Yeah.
Oh man, but you can't control it at all. It's just like you're spying on their movie. That's weird.
what it sounds like.
I don't know. I could be making this up, but that's the impression that I got.
I mean, I feel like there's some privacy laws. I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just watching Snowden, but
Yeah,
That's
of
what they're
all
doing.
movies.
That's what they're
at
doing
the same
wrong.
time, what if they pause it on some like butt sex scene or something?
They just
and then
keep
you're just
rewinding and playing it over and over.
I'll have
Yeah, they set up like A/B repeat points, so it just loops.
just looping that scene over and over again. You want to watch Bambi, but it's just the scene where her mom dies over and over and over again.
Oh, what?
You see your kid down in front of the movie, leave, come back an hour later, and it's just traumatized.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're gonna show your kid Bambi, buy a classic version of Bambi and show them. Don't movie spy someone's Bambi viewing experience.
We're sharing the moment together.
Yeah, because then it's like you're spying on that person's kids.
Yeah, okay, now you're making yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Cut this out before we air. No,
Okay.
we don't need the NSA knocking on our door.
With all your
It was just a joke, guys. We watch movies by ourselves.
First of
Don't
all,
worry.
if he hasn't been taken away for all his tweets to Donald Trump by now, we're okay.
It's on a secret Twitter account.
Yeah, secret. From the same phone your real Twitter account's on.
Might even be. It's not the same email. Nope, it's not.
Oh, that'll do the trick.
You're safe. The FBI, CIA, NSA is not that smart.
They won't catch you.
Right, like they've never seen that loophole before.
What?
The kid with the long hair. and the
My
bandana.
phone's encrypted, man. Come on.
All right, well, that's all the questions we have. Thank you for joining us today here on the Gimmick Table, taking time out of your busy day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, and safe travels out there, going from town to town.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Likewise.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for us here on the Gimmick Table. Thank you again to the captain, Nick Ando, for taking time out of his busy day to join us and give us an awesome interview.
Yeah, he really helped us navigate the troubled waters of the podcast.
Get a writer. If you like the show and you want to interact with us, get a hold of us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at @gimmick_table. We are also on Facebook at Gimmick Table Podcast. That's all you got to search. It's easy. You can listen to our show also on iTunes, Stitcher, and it's available on YouTube as well. Other things, guys, advertisers. If you want to get some cheap advertising spots on our show, go on over to fiverr.com/the Gimmick Table. Can't beat our prices. And if you want to support the show, we have set up a Patreon account, patreon.com/Gimmick Table. Guys, like we've said before, the content will always remain free. We're going to use this money to do a lot of good things. 1, keep the show operational and out of our own pockets, because that's nice. 2, give you guys Patreon exclusive contests. 3, we are going to sponsor wrestling events, and we will have some very big announcements on that soon. So keep listening, but support us so we can support wrestling. And we got a lot of friends out there that put out some really good podcasts. So we want to tell you about them, give them a little bit of love. So we're going to start off today. They come from the 8 Mile in Detroit. They are the Wrestling Nerd Alliance. Find them on Twitter at WNA Podcast. You can also search them on Facebook at Wrestling Nerd Alliance, and their show is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Podbean.
Also, we got Wretched Wrestling. They're on Twitter at Wretched Wrestle and Facebook at Wretched Wrestling. You can find their great content on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and they love doing live shows on Periscope.
And let's not forget about S Marks the Spot. You can find them on Twitter or Facebook at SMarkSpot. And their show is available for download on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podbean.
And finally, we have Raw is More. And they're on Twitter at Raw is More, Facebook, Raw is More, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podbean is where you can find all of the great content that is Raw is More.
All right, guys, that does it for us today here on the Gimmick Table. We hope you enjoyed the show. The captain is gone, so we are going to sink this ship. Have a good one, folks.
See ya.